Hola, this is the Wednesday Night Delight, Johnny Mundo, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio, right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com and YouTube. Today we have a very special guest for you, the former John Morrison, Johnny Mundo from Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground, by the way, is going to be housing one of their first shows outside of the Los Angeles area at the South by Southwest Fest. That'll be happening on March the 15th in Austin, Texas. Be sure and check out luchaunderground.com as well as check out the SXSW Fest. You can type that into Google and pull it up. You can find out all the events happening. If you are a fan of Latin American culture, it is certainly where you want to be this coming weekend. In fact, 1 weekend from this weekend, 1 weekend removed from this weekend. Hope you guys enjoy this interview. After the interview, me and Patrick sit down. We discuss Lucha Underground, the Ring of Honor 14th anniversary pay-per-view, the state of TNA wrestling, and a little bit of politics and the whole 9 yards. So I think you guys will enjoy our recap show. A little bit zany as usual, and I think you're going to love this interview. Thank you again to Lucha Underground, the El Rey Network, and of course, Johnny Mundo himself for stopping by and doing this with us. Enjoy.
Yo, Monkey, it's me. It's DDP. And you're listening to the Interactive Radio. Stay tuned and feel the bang.
Enjoying what you're hearing? Be sure and check out WrestlingEpicenter.com on social media at Facebook.com/WrestlingEpicenter, on Twitter at James Epicenter, and of course, WrestlingEpicenter.com for 24-hour news updates, our interview archives, and all the other information you've come to expect from the Wrestling Epicenter.
Hey, this is Road Warrior Animal, and you are listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, what a rush.
Hey, this is AJ Styles, and you're listening to Interactive Interview.
Welcome back to WrestlingEpicenter.com's Interactive Wrestling Radio. On the Newsmaker line with me right now is Lucha Underground superstar Johnny Mundo, perhaps better known as John Morrison. Mr. Mundo, how you doing today?
Doing great. Funny you bring that up because more and more I'm getting recognized as Johnny Mundo.
Oh, absolutely you are.
It's always pretty cool. No, but I mean, but in the past year, I would say it was more frequently John Morrison, but now especially around Los Angeles, a lot of times I go places and people go, "Hey, Johnny Mundo."
Oh, that's cool. That's definitely an indictment of how popular Lucha has become. Lucha Underground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, in my household, at one point, you were known as Mam Mutt, and I'll explain that quickly. I had a baby.
What?
You were Mam Mutt is how my little baby used to say your name. For whatever reason, he took a shine to you, and we must have 10 action figures of you in the house, and he just loved you. And every time he'd see you in the store on the action figure aisle, he wanted the Mam Mutt figure, which was you apparently. So there you go.
Well, it sounds like you got a little genius on your hands.
There we go. We do. He's got good taste. So you're going to be appearing for the South by Southwest Fest, and that's a festival that's done basically to talk about the impact of Latino culture in America. And we talked a little bit already about Lucha Underground, but how has Lucha Underground helped in bringing that Lucha Libre style into the United States?
It's I think you just nailed it. That's exactly what it's doing. It's more than half the roster of Lucha Underground is luchadors from AAA in Mexico City. Guys like Phoenix, Pentagon, Mil Muertes, King Cuerno, and it's the first time that I believe that lucha has been showcased on American television and in a polished, produced way that is available for American audiences. And it's shot in English in the El Rey Network specifically.
Right, absolutely.
A lot of Latin content for English-speaking audiences, and the blend of lucha and American psychology and Lucha Underground is what's really exciting to me about being on the show.
Yeah, I mean, I get DirecTV, so with those you get a lot of different channels, and I've tried to watch some straight up, CMLL wrestling and things of that nature, and the psychology just isn't the same. But when you watch Lucha Underground, you guys do a great blend of bringing American psychology, so it makes a lot more sense to my mind, and at least the wrestling that I'm used to, with a lot of that Mexican flair.
I think that's the key to it is blending the two, and because you're right, a lot of times like the stuff from Mexico, from my vantage point, especially growing up on WWF, Bushwhackers, and Shawn Michaels and Warrior and Hogan, the lucha doesn't. I'm not as excited about watching lucha without the story behind it, and putting the story behind lucha is the genius of Lucha Underground.
Absolutely, it is. And the other genius behind Lucha Underground is its cinematic style. It's very much like watching almost a movie when you watch it. It's got a very cinematic style and approach to it. When you first were approached about Lucha Underground, what was your opinion of the way that they were going to approach it? And now that we're already in season 2, how have you think it's played out?
When I heard the plan that it was going to be wrestling with the action film vibe of Robert Rodriguez and with the production team of Mark Burnett, I was really excited about it, but a little bit hesitant to believe fully, because that's one thing you learn in wrestling: don't believe it until it actually happens. But with Lucha Underground, they have had the creative integrity to stick with their original vision of presenting it like a gritty action film, filming the vignettes in the way that a TV show or a movie would be filmed, giving all the characters backstories, not just the top main event guys, and allowing the universe to be mysterious and dark, almost in a supernatural way.
Absolutely.
And it's been really great to be a part of it.
Absolutely. It's been great to watch. I was skeptical at first as well, and then, I've been sucked into it, especially in season 2, I'll be honest with you. It's been, more my cup of tea in season 2 than it ever was before, so I'm really enjoying it. Speaking of,
a lot of times, like, the first season of anything usually is the show is finding its identity, the promotion is experiencing growing pains, and from season 1 to season 2, Lucha has become more polished, and everyone has become better at what they do. I mean, in front of the ring, behind the ring, the post-production guys, the writers, everybody.
Well, they found the identity. It's exactly what it is. Watching it now, though, Rey Mysterio is now coming on board, and I got to ask you, any hopes or desires to recreate the magic of those 2009 that Intercontinental Championship match that I consider a classic? Any chance you guys want to try and create the rematch for that in Lucha Underground?
I've frequently said that that's one of the best matches I've ever had in my career, is the 2009 match I had against Ray. It's the first time I really felt like a true babyface in the ring. And yeah, absolutely, I'd love to wrestle Rey Mysterio. He's like the best wrestler ever. I'm not going to give anything away, and I'm just going to say, at some point, I'm definitely going to wrestle him, and I'm looking forward to having more time in the ring with him.
All right. Hey, my partner wanted to be here today, but he had to work. I actually skipped out of work a little early to do this. But I wanted to ask you this question that he wanted to ask, and that is, how do you feel about the success of Prince Puma, who you worked with as a tag partner and as an opponent in season 1, and now he's basically taken over the role as one of the top guys in the company?
Man, I can't say enough about how great he is. Prince Puma is almost as good as I am. He couldn't resist. I always got to get that one in there. he's one of the most talented guys I've ever been in the ring with, and he's constantly evolving, getting better and better. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, he's going to go down as one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of the sport. And seeing him step up into, in my opinion, he was a main event guy. He has been since season 1. But just seeing him become more polished and continually evolve as the seasons go on is really cool.
Absolutely. 2 more questions for you, then I'll let you go because I know you got a busy day ahead of you. My next question is there anybody that you've not yet worked on the Lucha Underground roster that you're eager to get in the ring with?
Man, Phoenix. I've been in the ring with him with Aztec Warfare and in tag match situations, but I would love to have a really like a long, like a good singles match with him.
Awesome. And the last question, we are Interactive Wrestling Radio, and one of the things we do is we let the fans ask a question, and I'm sure you probably get tired of being asked this question, but I'll ask it anyway because it seems to be the one that everybody keeps asking me to ask you, and that is, any chance down the line that you'd ever consider a return to World Wrestling Entertainment?
Sure, I'd consider it, but I don't think I'm going to have to. I've got a feeling that as time goes on, Lucha Underground is going to continue to expand and become a bigger and better and more viewed promotion, and I'm really happy with where I'm at. Awesome.
That's a great answer, man. And I wish you the best of luck. Hey, I was surprised as anybody that when you left WWE that you weren't on Impact Wrestling the next week, and you weren't, and you've kind of done your own thing and gone your own way and kind of walked your own path, and it's worked out for you, and that's a rarity in wrestling, so I really applaud you for that.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, it is a rarity. Thanks for having me, and I also want to make sure to mention we're having the first ever live Lucha show outside the temple in Austin on March 15th, and if you're in and around the city of Austin, Texas for South by Southwest, make sure to check that out. And also, you can watch episodes of Lucha Underground Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. on the El Rey Network.
The El Rey Network, which, by the way, is an awesome station. I mean, anywhere I can watch wrestling and watch the He-Man movie from the 80s is the greatest station there ever has been. That's awesome.
I know we had He-Man.
All right, man. Yeah. Awesome, man. Hey, I appreciate it. I know you got a busy day, so I'll let you go, but I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Good talking to you, too.
Hey, this is Michael Manna, but you may know me better under one of my many names. Stevie Richards, Big Stevie Cool from the BWO, Dr. Stevie from TNA. I can't remember the R20, but I do remember that you're listening to the Interactive Interview.
Enjoying what you're hearing? Be sure and check out WrestlingEpicenter.com on social media at Facebook.com/WrestlingEpicenter. On Twitter at James Epicenter. And of course, WrestlingEpicenter.com for 24-hour news updates, our interview archives, and all the other information you've come to expect from the Wrestling Epicenter.
This is the Total Package, Lex Luger. You are on the Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. We just finished up with Lucha Underground star Johnny Mundo, formerly John Morrison. A lot of fun to talk to that guy. A lot of fun to talk to him on and off air. We didn't talk very much off of the recording, but we did, and I think that we're similar in age. He's a California dude, which probably means that we don't agree on some things, but we agree on a lot of things. I think we get along very well if we were sitting at a bar. And that kind of, to some degree, is how the interview became. It kind of just became two dudes in their mid-30s talking about stuff. So I like that. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that certainly sounds like it. Morrison, I've seen him in interviews. I keep calling him Morrison, but Johnny Mundo, which you and I talked about this off air. I looked it up. The translation of Mundo, it means world.
World, right.
So Johnny World, that's his name. Kind of cool. But, yeah, he always seems like a really chill dude.
He does. He's calm. He's relaxed. And I said this at the end of the interview. And by the way, for those who haven't pieced it together yet, this is James, and we're talking to Patrick.
Howdy.
Yeah, sorry about that. Patrick Kelly's on the line with us. Anyway, the reason I said this at the end is I expected when he left WWE that he'd be on Impact, because at that point they were still spending money, the next week. And he never went there. You know, he worked FWE, he worked the independent scene in the Northeast and in Southern California, but he never appeared, and also in Mexico, but he never did go to TNA. And then Lucha Underground came along, and it's kind of like, oh, well, he's found his home. And he
fits in great there. Believe it or not, he really does fit in just fine, and you really see. And there's something about that show that brings out the best in guys. In season 1, a certain guy that you may remember, Ezekiel Jackson, was also on the show. And Ezekiel in the WWE, he was just kind of a run-of-the-mill big guy. Like, nothing flashy, just he does power moves, but there was not a whole lot about him that really set him apart from everybody else. He has Lucha Underground. He has this whole story arc set up for him, and he's this really interesting personality. And, you know, ring work-wise, still not the greatest, but it didn't really matter because the character was so much more interesting this time around. And, yeah, Big Rick, he was actually turned out to be one of the more interesting characters in season 1. And I never thought I would say that about Ezekiel Jackson.
Well, I mean, it goes to show you, when you have good writing, the guys will get over. And we were talking a little bit off the air about Morrison's match, or Mundo's match, with Rey Mysterio from 2009, which we even brought up during the interview, which Mundo says was one of his favorite matches. And we said the same thing, and you said it kind of felt like, okay, here he comes. You know, he's building up to be the next big thing, and it never panned out that way. And my next
we all thought, do you remember doing shows at the time? We all thought it was going to be Punk and Morrison at Mania for the belt.
Could have been. Should have been. But
yeah, and it ended up being not that.
To be honest with you, and I'm struggling to remember, that was 2010 WrestleMania. So
that was 26, yeah.
26. So what was the main event? Refresh my memory.
The closing match was Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, streak versus career.
Okay, well
that was Shawn's last match.
Yeah, that is understandable. I think everyone.
Yeah, the world title match, it was Jericho versus Edge.
Wow. Not that that's bad. I mean, I like Jericho and I like Edge just fine, but that was not exactly. They were already Jericho. It's weird with Jericho. I feel like he kind of peaked. And I think that as stupid as this is to say, because he's probably not that old. He's older now, but he's not. You know, by no means is he old or past it. He's still able to go in the ring. But I kind of feel like his legacy's been written. And it felt like, especially at that time, it was time for the next big thing because they kind of had done the Cena thing. They kind of had done everything else, and it was time for the next big thing. And CM Punk and Morrison were the next two guys that kind of captured that attitude, not to use that term, for what the WWE was heading towards, and then they veered off course, like way off course.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Jericho and Edge. That was to show how everything kind of got thrown out of whack for this Mania. We all thought that was going to be the tag title match. It was going to be, if you remember, Jericho and Edge were the tag champs, and then Edge got hurt, and then Jericho replaced him with Big Show. So we all thought, oh my God, WrestleMania, that's where Edge and Christian will reunite, and that'll be your tag title match. And that didn't pan out either.
Probably would have been better.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have been.
What we're getting at, though, and the point I want to make sure I complete that point, is if the writing's not there, even if you have the ability to seize the brass ring, as Vince would say, you can't do so unless the writing's there for you. If your character's not built that way, if you are... And look at it this way, Roman Reigns right now. Here's a guy with, the machine behind him. He's the, I hate to get into politics on the air, but I will. He's the Marco Rubio of the WWE, where, like this guy, come on, like this guy, and nobody likes this guy. And it's just the way that it's turning out. And you know, I don't mean to offend people when I say that. I get the feeling by the tone of voice that you might be a Rubio guy, but
oh no, I'm not.
Okay, but no, it feels like obviously he's forced, and I think I think he's got a hell of a look. I think that physically, if they do the right things with him, he has the ability to fill the role that they want him to fill, but not doing the stupid shit they have him doing.
Exactly, and they do that to a lot of people that they claim they like. Look at Bray Wyatt. Here's a guy that we said it. I've seen Shawn Michaels say it, and various other guys say it in other interviews, that Bray Wyatt is, quote, like the next Undertaker. And I'm looking at it like, okay, you say that, but he's 0-2 at WrestleMania already. He's directionless. He's got fed to Cena. He got fed to Undertaker twice. And I'm just sitting there going, it's like, how do you build that into anything? And that's none of what I just said is Bray's fault. It's just, that's how he's booked.
And that was a news story over a year ago. It'll be, okay, after he loses to Undertaker, you know, he'll fall into the middle card shuffle. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's never going to happen. He's too good for that. And I'm thinking, nobody's too good for that. It's a very rare breed that somebody will always rise to the top. And I can count them basically on one hand. Guys that you could try to push down on the card. You know, Hogan was one of them. They thought, okay, well, his time at the top is going down, but maybe we could just move him down the card a little bit. Not going to happen. It's just not, you know. The way
probably the best example would be Daniel Bryan, where they tried everything in their power to push him down, and the fans pretty much demanded that he be put in the main event. Like, yeah, I mean, that's probably the best example right there.
That's a very recent example, and yeah, it's absolutely true. And it's like, at some point, the people will stand up and say, this is what we want. And probably more so now than ever.
Oh, yeah. Well, with Twitter and the Internet and social media and all that other stuff, I mean, you have more access to the fan base than you've ever had before.
Well, yeah, but there are also more bullshit in the arenas, too, than before. Like, in the past, well, I'll give you an example, and I go back to Hogan again, but that's, you know, obviously my guy, so that's easy for me to do. If you want to hear the Internet try to make something out of nothing, go back and read some of their comments about Royal Rumble 92 and that Hogan, quote, got booed out of the building. There was splatterings of boos at best. You know, on the average night, Cena gets 30, 40, 50 times the amount of boos that Hogan got that night. Yet they make it sound like, oh, well, that was showing that there was a crack in the foundation of Hulkamania. Like, geez, dude, you're kind of stretching. He got a couple high school kids booing him. That's basically what it came down to.
Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they boo him when he helped Ric Flair eliminate Sid?
That's when they kind of turned on him. Yeah, they didn't like that he eliminated Sid. People liked Sid.
Oh, yeah, Sid's cool guy. We interviewed him.
Crazy as shit. Yeah, you gotta like him. And a lot of people, and I don't like that. Did you see on the network, and I'm kind of going off on one here, because we're going to do a short show. They did one of those countdown shows early on in the network history, and it was like the worst promos or something like that. And Sid and Scott Steiner made the list, and I'm like, really?
That's bullshit.
Yeah, why? Because he said that one bad promo in WCW. Well, I might be half as smart as you are, or whatever the hell he said. That
Sid had his failures as a promo guy. Like, there was that one. There was the one where he was actually live. This was when he was with the WWF. He was live on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
and he was supposed to cut and he choked like midway through, and he asked to do a different take, and JR was like, oh, we're live, buddy. So, yeah, he did have his failures as a promo guy, but he also had some really great ones, too, so it's kind of like it balances out.
Yeah. I mean, he was scary when he had to be scary, and he was, you know, people believed he was a psycho, and, you know, maybe with the whole scissors thing and the chair, maybe there was a little bit of a screw loose there, but hey, fit the character.
And Scott Steiner should be nowhere near a worst promo list. I love Scott Steiner's promos.
Oh, and the reasoning was that, oh, he's got a marble mouth. Yeah, and?
Okay, and Flair doesn't?
Flair, I'm fairly convinced Flair's bit off part of his tongue at one point because he's got that weird slur thing going. Either he's, in the bag a lot of the time, or something's wrong with the way he speaks because there's a little weird slur there.
Do you remember when TNA? Do you remember when TNA would do that post-Impact show? What was it called? Reaction.
Yeah, that was a very short-lived Bischoff reality show shed idea, yes.
Yeah, they would have Flair cut promos during that and do, like, little documentary pieces for that show, and they always subtitled him, which I found hilarious.
He was that bad, huh?
It was like, because I was at that point I was saying, guys, I can barely understand what Flair says, and guys were like, no, he's great, he's awesome, he's just as good as he ever was. TNA is their subtitling, and I'm all like, yep, that's, I'm the one that's wrong. Okay.
Yeah, well, that was that weird thing.
Night.
Exactly, the phlebitis thing, the weird story, the bleeding virgins, these horrible promos that he cut, where they acted like, oh, it's emotional every time he speaks. It's like, he's not the Pope. He's a guy who once was great. I'll give him credit. He was great in his day.
No, I would never. And let me premise this by saying I would never put Flair on a worst promo list either.
No, absolutely not. He's one of the best.
Yeah.
But he's also had really bad ones.
We've all been there. I mean, if we're going to judge people based off like 3 or 4 disastrous promos, then Cena should be on that list.
He's had some bombs, yeah.
Oh, the Star Wars one and the one about Sundays. Do you remember that one?
You might have to refresh my memory if you remember.
It was right before the Royal Rumble that he won, so this would have been 2013. And he cut a promo talking about how great Sundays are. And if you have a chance, go listen to it. It's one of the worst things I've ever heard.
What was he babbling?
And even in the arena, you could tell, like, people were like, what the hell are you talking about?
Was babbling about football or what?
I think football may have come up. I don't remember. But he was talking about, like, going to church and getting exercise and playing video games and getting laid and all sorts of other weird crap. And none of it, like, was coherent or made any sense.
Yeah, he was trying to relate to the regular guy.
Yeah, and he failed.
Well, I mean, the best thing I ever saw from TNA is when they were building James Storm in 2012 for the world title. He was cutting a promo in the ring, and there was just a realism to his character. You know, if I had my way, football would be all year round and things like that. And the crowd was just eating out of the palm of his hand. He fit what that company was at the time, and then they screwed it up. So,
I mean, they tend to do that too.
Yeah, they all do. And it's like sometimes, and this is a Russo thing, sometimes what people want doesn't mean that you have to almost give it to us and then swerve it. Mm-hmm. We're not shocked by then. You just piss us off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never seen anybody get swerved and thought, that they worked me. That was great. No, they think, fuck you. And then they stop watching.
It does work, but you gotta have an end game in mind. One of the best ones, as far as swervingness goes, was Survivor Series '98, where Rock turned heel.
Yeah. That was great.
But the end game from that was that, okay, but we're getting Austin in Rocket Mania. Even though Austin got screwed out of the title again, and Rock turned heel and you swerved us, it's like, okay, but we're getting Austin Rocket Mania, and that's where we're building to.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Well, that was a hot time, and there was a lot. I mean, the Austin head of the company, main eventer era is, in my opinion, not one of the better parts of WWE history, but there was some really good stories that went along with it. And, I mean, it's weird. I never was a huge Austin fan, and then I listened to his podcast, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of like this guy. But
it's kind of like me with Deion Sanders, right?
Well, somewhat. It's weird.
I hated him when he was a player, but as a commentator and as an analyst, I like him a lot.
It's just because he just loves it. You know what I mean? There's like when you take away the dancing after he catches a 2-yard pass, or whatever the hell stupid shit he did, or just a simple accomplishment that he completely oversold, like he did the greatest thing ever. That used to drive me nuts. He was one of the biggest celebrating pains in the ass, Deion Sanders that is, that I've ever seen. And then, as a commentator, his love for it just shines through to where you actually like him because he's so passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And the same thing with Austin. Austin, I loved him in the Hollywood Blondes. I didn't like the Austin character. And that, you're way more religious than me, but I kind of was a little bit turned off by the 316 thing, to be perfectly honest with you. I know you're way more religious than me, at least.
I wasn't bothered by it because I just kind of, I'm able to separate entertainment from whatever's in my personal life, like religion or politics or anything like that. I just kind of take it as, that's what that character's like.
Yeah, I guess I get that. I just didn't care for the way that went. But then, as a worker, I think he was at his best before the neck injury. But
absolutely. After the neck injury, when he came back, he was very, very limited. And if you notice, because he wrestled Undertaker 4 billion times.
Yeah, 316. The number of times Steve Austin wrestled the Undertaker in the main event.
Yep. That's actually one of my favorite Hall and Nash bits. But the reason they did that is because A, Austin trusted him, and B, Undertaker was just a good opponent for him for a while until they milked it to death. But if you notice, whenever they wrestled each other from 97 onward, Austin never took the tombstone.
Well, after the Owen sit-out pile driver, I mean, geez.
Yeah.
I would be tentative about taking it, too.
Oh, absolutely. And to be fair to Austin, you see those guys that we loved back in the 80s, like Hogan and Piper and those guys, who were, for lack of a better word, limited in what they could do and what they would do in the ring. But when you're that over, you don't need to do that much, so it's fine.
Well, and look at it this way, and I've said this, my favorite time period for Austin, and we're way off topic for Morrison, but was the Hollywood Blondes, and that's well before his meteoric rise to this guy. Whenever you leave the house, you see somebody in an Austin shirt. That's well before that. And then in that time period, when he was Austin 316 at its height, he was limited in the ring. And guess what? It didn't matter because, like we discussed last show, I'd still rather see a guy go out there and have a match I care about than be able to do 8,000 moves, but none of them mean anything.
Oh, and that's, if you want matches filled with moves that don't mean anything, just watch Raw every week. But to take it back to Lucha Underground and why I love that show so much is that not only does it do, like, the cinematic presentation that we talk about, and it's so different from all the other wrestling shows out there, but they do, if you watch the show, they manage to make everything that they do, from their matches to their stories to their characters, all mean something, and it's multi-layered, and it's very involved, and as a result, the whole show is interesting, and it's really beneficial that the show's an hour long. I can't stress that enough, because there are sometimes I'll watch Raw, and I will completely forget everything that I just watched, because it's so bloated that it's impossible to have it all sink in, whereas Lucha Underground, it's 1 hour, and by the end of it, it's like, oh, crap, I need to see what happens next week. I have to wait a week? That's crazy.
Well, and that's what wrestling used to be. There used to be 1 hour shows, and you can blame WCW for that because they.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we're getting ratings. Well, let's Thursday night show for 2 hours. Well, okay, that's still getting ratings. So let's make Nitro 3 hours, and let's make Saturday night 2 hours. And hey, let's give them a Saturday morning and a Saturday night and a Sunday morning and a Sunday night show. And
before you know it, TBS was the WCW network.
Yeah, there was nothing but WCW wrestling, Saved by the Bell reruns, and Braves baseball. That was it. And you know what? I loved it. I mean, I'm not a Braves fan, but it's like, okay, I can live with this. I don't see really a reason to change the channel. So. And
you know what? That overexposure thing, I remember because I was really digging Raw in like '98. Going back to the Attitude Era, I was more of a fan of the Attitude Era than you were, but
most people were.
yeah, I was really digging it, and then it did have that excitement factor. Oh my God, I need to see what happens next week. And to its credit, WCW had that too with Nitro early on before they started throwing it.
Before it ran its course, before they didn't know where the next step was.
Right, exactly. Like the Hogan Sting build-up in '97, that stuff was amazing. But where was I going with this? But yeah, like it had that excitement factor to it. Oh my God, I need to see what happens next week. And then they added SmackDown, much like how WCW added Thunder. And then, I don't know, it kind of cut the excitement in half to have a second show in the middle of the week. And it was like, oh, yeah, it's still cool. I'm still a fan and everything, but, I'm not as excited to see it because I'm not waiting as long to see the next step.
But the thing is, financially, it makes them more sense to have more TV time. So they're going to keep doing that until what happens with WCW happens to WWE, which is it costs more to make than it does to
maintain
to air. Then you get to air it, and that's why you started seeing, towards the end of WCW, they were taping Thunder the same night as they did the live Nitro because they needed to cut costs. Similar to what they're doing in TNA, where if I watch TNA, which is on as we speak, I'm watching a show that took place in early February.
Yeah.
And it's the early March. So.
Right.
And that's, Lucha Underground.
What do you think of TNA show lately? Because I think you and I might be the only two people that watch it.
Oh, well, there's 200,000 people plus watching it, so, it's doing nowhere near what it was 3 years ago, but it's still doing numbers. They've been cut into a fifth, basically, of what they were about 3 years ago. I think 3 years ago they topped out about 1.5 million viewers, and now they're down to regularly somewhere between 250 and 300,000. So
Jesus.
That's a big drop. Granted, some of it has to do with the station they're on, but they also really, really atrophied in terms of the quality of the programming they put on.
Oh, yeah.
It's been better in 2016 than it has been since 2013, but I'm not sure that's a huge compliment.
No, I watch the show and I see some things that I kind of like and that kind of work. Like, I know you've complimented them. I think Mike and Maria add a lot to the show.
I think that I think he needs to hit the gym just slightly, and that's not a knock because he's in better shape than I'll ever be. But to look like a superstar, I think he just needs a little bit more. Maybe I'm still stuck in that muscle guy thing. Just a little bit more of that chiseled appearance. But, his promos are strong. His charisma is there. He's got that, no doubt about it. And Maria adds an immeasurable support to his career. I like him. I like the pairing. I think that they could do a lot with those guys.
Right, and this new thing that they're doing with the Decay, Crazy Steve and Rosemary, I think they're great too.
Oh yeah, I like her. She's been on the Indies for a long time.
She, when she first showed up, and I saw how scary she looked in the makeup, it really reminded me of the first time I saw Luna Vachon. Like, not necessarily like similar looks or anything, but I got that same feeling like, oh my God, this woman's scary. You don't want to mess with her.
I got a different thought.
What were you thinking?
It's an Alice Cooper I could fuck. No, just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. No, I thought that it was a good look and comfortable on the microphone, but that comes from being on the Indies. It's unfortunate she's in TNA and not WWE because I think she would do really well there. And Crazy Steve, he's come into his own, and Abyss, who has floundered for several years now, has something going that's actually interesting. So I'm glad for all three. Crazy Steve, I thought was pretty good with the Menagerie, and there was a lot of guys in that group that didn't really have a lot going. So he was. Yeah,
they kept the one that was good. So.
Yeah, I like Rob Terry. I think there was potential there if they built it right, but that character wasn't going to be it. Mike Knox I really like a lot, and Rebel I like a lot too, but I don't think she's a worker. She's more of a valet, eye candy kind of thing.
She worked in that Lethal Lockdown match last week.
Yeah. She's not bad. She's not going to embarrass herself, but she's not up to the standards of some of the others. Like, if you put her in there with Gail Kim, one-on-one with Gail Kim, she's going to be exposed.
Right.
For not being, and that's not a knock. She's been trained way later than any of the others, and it's a lot to learn. She's like 6, 7? So she's not as young as some of the others. So she's not, doesn't have the benefit.
Rebel?
Yes.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, dude, she was in I think she's 37 or something like that. You might have to look her up.
Jeez, I wouldn't have pegged her for being that old.
She's Christy Hemi's friend. They were dance partners. They were in the, she's an ex-Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, which might,
that's a turn-off right there.
That's a turn-off, exactly. But I think she did the lingerie football league with Christy Hemme, so she's around Christy Hemi's age, a little bit older, actually.
Wow.
So
okay.
But no, I think she's attractive, and you give her a chance if she can learn to work. There's an appearance there. It was a big turn-off. Speaking of turn-offs, Josh Matthews says he compared her to Elton John. I'm like, oh, okay, that's not cool.
What? Why?
Oh, the hair, the hat, the cop hat thing.
Oh,
The cop
okay.
hat gimmick. Apparently that makes you Elton John.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen Elton John wear that tight of white shorts, and God, I hope I never do.
Yeah. Okay. Good one. Good call, Josh.
Yeah, he says a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Although, now we're on the topic of commentators, for those of you who watch SmackDown, which I can't imagine there are many more people besides me that watch SmackDown, but how great is Mauro Ranallo as a commentator compared to the rest of the commentators out there these days?
I like him, and I'll be honest with you, I don't watch much SmackDown or WWE at all.
You're not missing much as far as SmackDown goes. Literally, he's the main reason I watch SmackDown. It's like, oh, it's good to hear a commentator that's actually, like, good at this job.
Well, and that was the same thing we complimented Matt Stryker on.
Mm-hmm.
And
yet people shit on him.
Well, when he was with WWE, he would reference other companies, and that's not done.
Yeah.
You can't do that. There is nothing outside of the WWE universe. They are all-encompassing, and anything else doesn't really matter. Or it did never happen. Unless they buy the footage. In which case, it did happen. But we'll see.
I'm shocked that they've got AJ Styles on their show, and they're actually they're not specifically referencing the companies he worked for, but they're actually acknowledging that he has a reputation outside of WWE.
Well, you almost have to, because he also was, 37, 38, and it would make no sense for him to come in and just treat him like he's a 22-year-old, because he's not a 22-year-old.
Well, they call him rookie, which I kind of go, okay.
He's a rookie? I mean,
they keep calling him a rookie, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah, he's an 18-year rookie.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, jeez.
God, has he been working for 18 years?
I think
98, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, 98. He started working in NWA Wildside, and that led to his shot in WCW at the end of 2000, and from there it was, the indie scene after WCW closes. He worked XWF and various other upstarts that were coming around 2001 and 2002. Even had some matches on WWE TV that were, nothing to write home about.
Yeah, he worked Velocity against the Hurricane once, I think.
Yeah. So he was around, and before he cut his teeth with TNA and made that kind of his home.
Yeah, I think he was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was on the first ROH show and the first TNA show that same year, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Speaking of ROH, have you seen their 14th anniversary show yet?
I did. What did you think of it?
It was all right.
Yeah, that's kind of my take. It was there were a lot of New Japan versus ROH matches on there, and I think the New Japan guys won almost all the matches.
I don't really care. Those matches don't really appeal to me. It's like Starrcade 95.
Right.
It's like, since when are we at war with Japan?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, if you want to do a cross-promotional thing, great, but there's got to be some sort of stakes or reasoning or something to sink our teeth into, and it's just like, no, we're just having Japanese guys on the show and they're beating our guys. It's like,
like
okay.
Chris Benoit versus Tenzan, and they're chanting USA. Good call. That makes a lot of sense. One's from Canada, the other's from Japan. Let's chant USA.
Foreigners are evil. They're always evil. My favorite evil foreigner ever was Ludwig Borga, because it's like, really, since when has the United States been at war with Finland? That's a new one on me.
It was weird. I didn't understand that one either. We're going to have to wrap this up soon because we've got way longer than I wanted to. But was it Futurama where they had the wrestling thing and Bender was wrestling and he goes, and Bender versus the foreigner. I'm not from here.
Yep. Actually, if you've ever watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, they also did a wrestling parody episode that was great, and actually Mick Foley provided a voice on there.
Really?
Yeah, he does a rock parody.
That's interesting. I'd like to...
Yeah, there's a character in there that calls himself the Boulder, and he talks like The Rock, and it's Mick Foley doing the voice, and it's pretty great.
The Last Airbender, wow. I don't think I've seen that. Many episodes of that, anyway.
It's really good. I think so. I think it's one of the better animated shows that I've seen. That came out in like early 2000s. It's one of the best animated shows I've seen post 2000s for sure.
Absolutely. Well, we've gone way off topic, but just to close up with this thought, Lucha Underground is going to be part of South by Southwest Fest, March 11th through 15th, and with the 15th being their first show, as far as I know, outside of the Los Angeles area. This time it'll be in Austin, Texas, which will certainly do well. They're celebrating Latino culture. Go Donald Trump. And they're doing pretty well for themselves. I mean, I like the way yes, I got a little dig in there. I like the way that they do blend American psychology into that style of wrestling. It is definitely a necessity. If you doubt that, tonight, go on whatever cable or satellite provider you have and search for wrestling. And inevitably you're going to find a Mexican wrestling show available on one of the Spanish language channels. Do yourself a favor and watch it. And then you can appreciate even more why giving it the American style is such a necessity, because there's some spots in there where it just feels like I got to get my stuff in. And there's no logic to it. Like a guy will take a tombstone and then get up and do this corkscrew to the floor for no reason after no selling the tombstone. And it's like you're sitting there, and if you don't speak the language, which I don't, you're going to be scratching your head thinking, okay, I don't know what the announcer's saying, but I can't fathom a way that makes any goddamn sense.
Now, it's obvious the moves don't hurt.
They're supposed to. Because if the tombstone doesn't hurt, then how come his plancha hurts?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, you know who I feel that way about, believe it or not? I've gotten to where I cannot watch a Young Bucks match. It's like I can't watch them.
Really?
Because I just get angry.
You don't think they sell enough?
I think they have no tag team psychology at all whatsoever. Every match they have turns into a tornado tag free-for-all where they just bounce around and do 40 billion super kicks and all these amazing moves that never get pinfalls and all this stuff. And it's just every match. It's literally every match they do. And I'm just sick and tired of it.
You know who I really like that will never get a big push there? I like Silas Young.
I like him too. He's very old school.
Well, that's probably why I like him.
I don't like this feud he's having with Dalton Castle because I think it ran its course months ago.
They should have ended it the last, what was that, in August or whatever that was, that pay-per-view they did, when the boys turned back and rejoined Castle. That should have been the end of the feud, and then they can move on to something else. They shouldn't continue that.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I like as a talent though. I mean, he's a guy who was with WWE Developmental for years. There's something there. I don't think they'll ever use him in a main event role, but there's something there. He cuts a good promo. He has great matches. I mean, I think he's got some charisma to him. I'd like to see them push him.
Yeah. There's a bunch of good guys out there like that.
I mean, he's not a good promo, but I like Moose. He's got a lot of charisma.
Yeah, and you can get around less than stellar promos.
Yeah. Well, they got Truth Martini as a heel manager. That works pretty well.
He's actually really good.
I like him. I like him a lot. I don't think he needs to be associated with Lethal. Lethal is a good enough promo on his own. But
it's kind of the Bobby Heenan effect where I think putting him with Lethal kind of adds to his overall presentation. Like, guys like Rick Rude and Mr. Perfect didn't need a mouthpiece, but having Heenan there lent credibility to him.
Yeah, well, especially in their early stages, yeah. Then they can kind of branch off on their own. But kind of like to instantly give them credibility. But I think that he's world champion, he doesn't necessarily need credibility anymore.
Right.
He's got it. But anyway, for everybody in the Austin, Texas area, go check out South by Southwest and check out some good wrestling from Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground is on every Wednesday on El Rey Station. And like I joked with John Morrison, it's the coolest station there is because you can watch the He-Man movies from the 80s, movie from the 80s, and then watch wrestling right afterwards. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, it's like I made a channel for myself. It's really amazing.
Oh, it is. It is very cool. It's much different than Pop TV, where I have to sit through horrible acting from Days of Our Lives, followed by Impact Wrestling, which just makes me feel oh so manly.
Actually, last week, waiting for Lucha Underground, they had Nightmare on Elm Street on, so I caught like the last 10, 15 minutes of that movie, which it's one of my favorite horror movies from the 80s. So
which one?
I'm like, cool.
Which one? What number? The first one?
The first one.
Oh, okay. I like the third one. But that could be...
The third one's very good. The third one's the best of the sequels.
I also love the soundtrack because one of my favorite bands did. Oh yeah, one of my favorite bands did the Dream Warriors song.
Dream Warriors. Sorry, it's a great song.
It is. It's fun to hear him try to hit those notes now because it's not exactly easy, but he still does for the most part. But yeah, no, I mean I've seen Dokken probably 15 times. I mean I've seen him a lot of times. It's a wonder I don't have hearing loss. But anyway, hope everybody enjoyed this interview, and we'll be back next week. I'm working on something big again, so I've kind of got the fire lit under me again. So we'll see what we get going in the next couple of weeks. And hey, everybody, check out WrestlingEpicenter.com. Check us out on Facebook at Facebook.com/WrestlingEpicenter. You can like us on Twitter or follow us on Twitter, but we don't really do much with it. We're at James Epicenter. And, of course, check out Lucha Underground every Wednesday night on the El Rey Network. Hey, Pat, thanks for joining me, man.
All right, no problem. Good night, man.
Good night, Patrick. Hey, everybody, enjoy.
Hi, this is Jasmine St. Clair, and you're listening to me on the Interactive Interview.